I watched my stepsister Emma's face drain of color as the venue coordinator turned her away at the Grand Belmont Hotel's gilded entrance. I'm sorry, Miss Chen, but we've had to cancel your booking. The space has been purchased outright by another client. Emma's perfectly manicured hands clenched into fists. What? That's impossible. My wedding is in 3 months. The coordinator smiled apologetically. Perhaps you didn't read the fine print. The deposit only holds the date until full payment is made. When you failed to pay the remaining balance by yesterday's deadline, the venue became available again. My stepmother Linda rushed forward, her shrill voice echoing off the marble floors. This is outrageous. Do you know who we are? The Chen family has been in this city for generations. I'm aware, Mrs. Chen, and I'm sure you'll understand that business is business. The new client paid in full, in cash, and added a substantial premium for immediate possession of the date. I sipped my coffee at a cafe across the street, watching the scene unfold through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The barista had given me a curious look when I'd asked for a table with a view of the hotel entrance, but I'd tipped well. Small pleasures. Emma was crying now, her mascara running in black rivulets down her cheeks. Linda had her phone out, no doubt calling my father to fix this catastrophe. But Dad couldn't fix this, nobody could. Because the new client who had purchased Emma's dream venue, her perfect fairy tale wedding location, was me. 3 months ago, I died. It wasn't dramatic or cinematic. No car crash, no terminal illness, no tragic accident. I simply went to sleep one night after another exhausting day of working 3 jobs to pay for community college, and I didn't wake up. The coroner would later determine it was heart failure, brought on by malnutrition, stress, and undiagnosed hypertension. I was 22 years old. What I remember most clearly about dying isn't the pain or the fear. It's the crushing weight of regret. Regret that I'd spent my entire life being the family doormat. Regret that I'd believed them when they said I wasn't worth investing in. Regret that I'd watched them give Emma everything that should have been mine, and I'd said nothing. But then I woke up. I was 16 again, lying in my cramped bedroom in the Chen family mansion, the same room that used to be a storage closet before Dad remarried. The morning light filtered through the small window, and I could hear Emma laughing downstairs, that crystalline sound that had always made adults coo over her. For a moment, I thought it had all been a nightmare. But when I closed my eyes, I could still remember everything. Every slight, every betrayal, every moment of the 6 years that followed this day. I remembered my 18th birthday when Dad and Linda sat me down and told me they'd spent my college fund on Emma's private school tuition. I remembered them promising they'd make it. Up to me that Emma just needed a little more support right now, that I was so much more capable and independent than my stepsister. I remembered believing them. I remembered working myself to death so they could give Emma her dream wedding. Not this time. I got out of bed and looked at myself in the mirror. 16-year-old me stared back, all gangly limbs and uncertain posture, but behind my eyes was someone different now. Someone who knew exactly how the next 6 years would play out if I let them. Someone who had no intention of letting that happen. The first thing I did was go through my room. In my previous life, I'd been naive enough to keep a journal. In that journal, I'd written down all my hopes, my dreams, my college plans. I'd written about the college fund that Grandma Zhang had set up for me before she died, the fund that Dad was supposed to be managing as the executor of her estate. I'd written about how proud Grandma would have been to see me go to college, the first person in our family to pursue higher education. In my previous life, when I was 18, I'd come home from my part-time job to find Emma crying in the living room. Dad and Linda had looked at me with such rehearsed sympathy. "Sweetheart, we need to talk," Dad had said. They'd explained that Emma had gotten into an exclusive private academy for her final 2 years of high school. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The tuition was substantial. They'd had to make a difficult choice. "We used your college fund," Linda had said, not quite meeting my eyes. "But don't worry, you're so smart and capable. You'll get scholarships." Emma, well, she needs a little more support to reach her potential. I'd been devastated. But I'd also been groomed for 16 years to put Emma first. She was younger, she was fragile, she needed protection. I was the strong one. I could handle it. So I'd handled it. I'd worked my ass off, gotten partial scholarships, worked 3 jobs, and still barely scraped by at community college while living at home. All while watching Emma coast through her fancy private school, then her expensive liberal arts college. Funded entirely by mom and dad. This time, I took that journal and burned it in my tiny trash can. No more evidence of my dreams for them to steal. The second thing I did was go to Dad's office. It was Sunday morning, and Dad always played golf on Sundays. Linda took Emma to her violin lessons. I had 3 hours. Dad wasn't a careful man. He'd never needed to be. I knew where he kept his important documents because I'd seen him access them hundreds of times in my previous life. The home safes combination was Linda's birthday. He wasn't even creative about it. Inside, I found exactly what I was looking for, the documents related to Grandma Jiang's estate. The college fund she'd set up for me had been substantial, $250,000, meant to be held in trust until I turned 18, at which point Dad was supposed to transfer it to an account in my name for educational expenses. I took photos of everything with my old flip phone, the original trust documents, the bank statements showing the current balance. All of it. Then I carefully returned everything to its place and locked the safe. The third thing I did was wait. I went back to being the invisible daughter. I did my chores, kept my head down, and watched. I watched Emma prance around the house, complaining about her homework, demanding new clothes, throwing tantrums when she didn't get her way. I watched Linda dote on her daughter, always ready with comfort and excuses. I watched Dad nod along, his wallet always open for his stepdaughter. And I planned. 2 years passed. I turned 18 in March. Dad and Linda sat me down in April, just like before. "Sweetheart, we need to talk," Dad said, using the same tone, the same words. I made my face show concern. "What's wrong?" Linda placed her hand on Emma's shoulder. Emma's eyes were already red, tears threatening to spill. Such a practiced performance. "Emma has been accepted to the Ashford Academy," Linda said. "Do you know what this means? Only 50 students per year get in. It's one of the most prestigious private schools in the country." "That's amazing, Emma," I said, my voice flat. Dad cleared his throat. "The tuition is substantial, and with the economy the way it is, our investments haven't performed as well as we'd hoped." Here it comes, I thought. "We need to use your college fund," Linda said. "Just temporarily, you understand. We'll pay it back once we get the annual bonuses from the company, and you're so brilliant, honey. You'll get scholarships. Emma needs—" "No," I said, the word hung in the air like a bomb. Dad blinked. "What?" "No," I repeated, louder this time. "You're not using my college fund. Grandma left that money specifically for me, for my education. The trust documents are very clear about that." Linda's face hardened. "Don't be selfish, Mira. Emma is your sister." "Stepsister," I corrected, and I'm not being selfish. I'm being realistic. That money is mine. Grandma wanted me to go to college, not Emma, me. Dad's expression shifted to something I'd never seen before, or rather, something I hadn't recognized in my previous life. Calculation. "Mira, I'm the trustee of that fund. I have the authority to make decisions about it until you turn 18, and I've decided, and I'm 18. I turned 18 last month. The money should have been transferred to my account already." I pulled out the envelope I'd been keeping in my backpack. "These are copies of the original trust documents. I know exactly what Grandma's will said. I know exactly how much money should be in that account. And I know that legally, you have to transfer it to me now." Dad's face went red, but Heike, "Where did you get though?" "From your safe. The combination is Linda's birthday, by the way. You should probably change that." I stood up, and then, "I want the money transferred to an account in my name by the end of the week. If it's not, I'll get a lawyer. I've already researched my options. Breach of fiduciary duty is taken very seriously in this state." Linda shot to her feet. "You ungrateful little bitch! After everything we've done for you." "Done for me?" I laughed, and it sounded harsh even to my own ears. "You've done nothing for me. You moved me into a storage closet so Emma could have the bigger bedroom. You make me do all the housework while Emma does nothing. You've never once asked about my dreams, my plans, my future. All you've ever cared about is Emma." "That's not true," Dad said weakly. Isn't it? Tell me one thing about me, Dad. Just one. What's my favorite color? What do I want to study in college? What's my best subject in school? When's my birthday? Silence. That's what I thought. I picked up my backpack. End of the week. Transfer the money or I get a lawyer. Your choice. I walked out of that house with my heart pounding, adrenaline singing through my veins. In my previous life, I'd been too afraid to stand up to them, too conditioned to be the good daughter, the understanding one, the one who made sacrifices. Not anymore. Dad transferred the money 3 days later. I immediately moved it to a new bank and opened accounts he couldn't access. Then I moved out. I rented a small apartment near the university I'd already been accepted to, the same one I'd attended in my previous life, but this time I'd be going as a full-time student, not a part-timer juggling 3 jobs. The next 4 years were the happiest of my life. I threw myself into my studies. I majored in business and finance, subjects I'd always been interested in but never had time to pursue properly before. I graduated with honors. I made friends, real friends, who saw me as a person, not a servant. I dated, had my heart broken, picked myself up and tried again. I lived. Meanwhile, I kept tabs on my old family through social media and the occasional check-in with neighbors. Emma did attend Ashford Academy, but without my college fund to drain, Dad and Linda had to take out loans. Significant loans, the kind that followed you for decades. Emma graduated and went to a state school for college, a decent one, but nothing like the expensive liberal arts college she'd attended in my previous life. Linda complained constantly on Facebook about how unfair it all was, how I'd been so selfish, how I'd ruined Emma's opportunities. I didn't care. When I was 21, I started investing. I had knowledge from my previous life about which companies would boom, which stocks would soar, which real estate markets would explode. I was careful, methodical, never making moves so bold they'd attract attention, but consistently choosing winners. By the time I was 22, the age I died in my previous life, I was wealthy. Not millionaire wealthy yet, but comfortable, secure, free. That's when I saw Emma's Facebook post announcing her engagement. In my previous life, Emma had gotten engaged at 21, a year before I died. The wedding had been scheduled for a month after my death. I'd worked myself to exhaustion helping to pay for it, contributing thousands of dollars I couldn't afford because Linda had guilted me into it. Family helps family, she'd said. Surely you want your sister to be happy on her big day. I'd died before the wedding could happen. I sometimes wondered if they'd even noticed I was gone, or if they'd been too busy with the floral arrangements. This time, I was very much alive, and I had no intention of contributing a single penny, but I did have other plans. Emma's wedding was set for June, a year and a half away. She posted constantly about her planning process. She'd found the one, a man named Derek who worked in tech sales, made decent money, and seemed genuinely devoted to her. She'd found the perfect dress, the perfect flowers, the perfect cake, and she'd found the perfect venue, the Grand Belmont Hotel. The Grand Belmont was legendary in our city. It was where celebrities got married, where politicians held fundraisers, where the ultra-wealthy celebrated their milestones. Its ballroom was a masterpiece of marble and crystal, with soaring ceilings and windows that overlooked the city skyline. Getting married there was a status symbol, proof that you'd made it. In my previous life, Emma's wedding had been at a nice but unremarkable hotel downtown. The Grand Belmont had been beyond their reach financially. But in this timeline, without my college fund to drain, Dad and Linda had less debt. They'd managed their finances better. And Emma had convinced them that she deserved the Grand Belmont, that it was her dream, that she'd have this day to remember forever. Dad and Linda scraped together enough for the deposit. The wedding was booked. Emma posted about it constantly. Photos of the venue, excited updates about her planning meetings, humble brags about how lucky she was, how blessed, how perfect everything would be. I read every post with a smile. Then 3 months before the wedding, I made my move. The Grand Belmont's ownership had been in flux for years. The original family was selling, and several investment groups were competing for it. In my previous life, the sale had fallen through and the hotel had gone into foreclosure. But I knew the original owners would accept the right offer from the right buyer. I made them an offer they couldn't refuse. My investments had paid off spectacularly. I'd taken calculated risks on tech startups, cryptocurrency, getting in just before the boom and out just before the bust, and strategic real estate purchases. I'd turned my college fund into serious wealth. Not billionaire wealth, but enough to buy the Grand Belmont Hotel. The sale was finalized in February. As the new owner, I reviewed all existing bookings and contracts, and there it was, Emma Chen's wedding, scheduled for June 14th. The deposit had been paid, but per the contract, the remaining balance, substantial for the venue she'd chosen, was due 90 days before the event. That deadline was March 14th. Emma missed the deadline. I didn't call to remind her. I didn't send a courtesy notice. The contract was clear and she'd signed it. When the payment didn't come through, I immediately canceled the booking and returned the deposit, minus the cancellation fee outlined in the fine print. Then I waited for the explosion. It came 3 days later when Emma apparently decided to pop by the venue to confirm some details for the ceremony. That's when she learned her wedding had been canceled and the space sold to another client. That client was me, of course. I'd booked my own event for June 14th, a charity gala for a scholarship fund I was starting in Grandma Zhang's name. The irony was delicious. Now, watching Emma sob outside the Grand Belmont while Linda shrieked into her phone, I felt nothing but satisfaction. This was just the beginning. I finished my coffee and walked across the street. They didn't notice me at first. I'd changed a lot in 4 years. I'd grown into myself, learned how to dress, how to carry myself. I was wearing a tailored suit that cost more than Emma's entire wardrobe. My hair professionally styled, my posture confident. "Problem, Emma?" I asked. She looked up, and for a moment she didn't recognize me. Then her eyes widened. "Mira?" "That's Ms. Zhang to you," I said coolly. "I kept Grandma's surname when I legally changed my name. I thought it was more fitting than Chen." Linda's face went through several shades of red. "What are you doing here?" "I own this hotel, didn't they tell you?" I smiled at the coordinator, who was watching this exchange with poorly concealed fascination. "Thank you for handling that, Sarah. I trust everything is proceeding smoothly." "Yes, Ms. Zhang," Sarah said, her smile genuine now. "The space is prepared for your visit. Shall I show you to your office?" In a moment, I turned back to Emma and Linda. "I couldn't help but overhear that you lost your venue. That must be devastating. So close to the wedding, too." Emma's face crumpled. "Mira, please, can't you help? Can't you give us back the date?" "Why would I do that?" "Because I'm your sister," Emma wailed. "No, you're not. You're the girl whose mother married my father. You're the girl who took everything from me, my room, my time, my money, my future. But you know what? I don't actually hate you, Emma. I pity you." Linda stepped forward, her voice dripping with venom. "You've become quite cruel, Mira. This isn't like you." "You're right. The old Mira would have given in. She would have made herself smaller so you could be bigger. She would have sacrificed her dreams for yours. But that Mira is gone. I killed her. And honestly, best decision I've ever made." I walked past them into my hotel and I didn't look back. The fallout was immediate and aside, spectacular. Emma called me 17 times that day. I blocked her number. Linda called from different phones, left voicemails alternating between begging and threatening. I saved them all. You never knew when documentation would come in handy. Dad finally called 3 days later. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Mira," he said, and he sounded tired. "Old." "Please." Emma is heartbroken. Linda is beside herself. "Surely we can work something out." "There's nothing to work out, Dad. Emma signed a contract. She didn't fulfill her obligations, the venue became available, and I purchased it for my own use. It's simple business." "You did this on purpose," he said quietly. "You bought the hotel specifically to ruin her wedding." "I bought the hotel because it was a good investment, and it is. The Grand Belmont has been undervalued for years. I'm already fielding offers from event planners and corporate clients. I'll make my money back within 3 years, and after that, it's pure profit." "But the timing is coincidental. Emma's poor planning isn't my responsibility. She had 90 days to make the payment. She chose not to. She didn't have the money." Then she shouldn't have booked a venue she couldn't afford, I said, my voice hard. Actions have consequences, Dad. It's a lesson you and Linda never taught Emma. You shielded her from every hardship, gave her everything she wanted, and told her the world would always bend to accommodate her. Well, guess what? It doesn't. I don't. When did you become so cold? Dad asked, and he sounded genuinely confused. When I died, I said, and hung up. That wasn't quite true. I wasn't cold, I was just no longer warm toward them. There's a difference. Over the next few weeks, I watched Emma's wedding plans unravel on social media. She found a new venue, but it was significantly cheaper and less impressive. Several of her friends made pointed comments about the downgrade. Her perfect wedding was becoming ordinary, and for Emma, who'd been raised to believe she deserved extraordinary, that was torture. Linda posted passive-aggressive status updates about ungrateful children and family betrayal. Some of her friends knew the story, or Linda's version of it, and left supportive comments. But others, the smarter ones, stayed silent. They could sense there was more to this story. I continued with my life. I hired a management team for the Grand Belmont and began implementing improvements. I discovered I had a knack for hospitality business, anticipating what clients wanted, creating memorable experiences, building relationships with vendors and event planners. The charity gala I'd planned for June 14th was a massive success. I'd invited everyone who was anyone in the city's business and philanthropic circles. I'd made sure the event was covered by local media, and I'd made sure everyone knew the purpose: to fund college scholarships for young women who'd lost their guardians, who had no family support, who were fighting to build futures on their own. Girls like I'd been. The gala raised $500,000. Local newspapers ran stories about my success, my business acumen, my generosity. At 22, I became known as one of the city's youngest philanthropists. Emma's wedding, held the same day at her backup venue across town, was not covered by any media. But I knew how it went. I'd hired someone to attend, not to sabotage, just to observe and report back. Call it curiosity, call it closure, call it pettiness. I don't particularly care. The wedding was nice. The venue was acceptable. Emma looked beautiful in her dress. Derek seemed happy. Dad and Linda smiled for the photos, but there was a tightness around their eyes, a forced quality to their joy. Because they knew. They all knew. They'd lost control of the narrative. They were no longer the important Chen family, and I was no longer the overlooked daughter. I was Mira Zhang, successful businesswoman, hotel owner, philanthropist, and they were the people who'd underestimated me. That should have been enough. That should have been my triumphant ending, my perfect revenge. But the universe, it seemed, wasn't done with me yet. 2 months after the wedding, Linda called me from a number I didn't recognize. I answered, expecting another tirade. Instead, I heard crying. Real crying. Not the manipulative tears I'd seen so many times before. Mira, Linda gasped. What? Please, I need your help. It's Emma. Every instinct told me to hang up, but something in her voice, some genuine anguish, made me pause. What about Emma? She's in the hospital. Linda's voice broke. She tried to kill herself. The world tilted. What? After the wedding. She's been depressed. She won't talk to anyone, won't get out of bed. Derek's been worried sick. We all have. We thought it was just adjustment, post-wedding blues. But last night, she took a bottle of pills. Derek found her just in time. She's stable now, but Linda dissolved into sobs. Please, Mira, I know I don't deserve to ask. I know we hurt you. But Emma is my baby. She's my whole world. Please. I stood in my apartment, phone pressed to my ear, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. This hadn't happened in my previous life. Emma had been fine after her wedding, happy, content with her new life. What had changed? Me. I'd changed. My actions had changed the timeline, and somehow that had led to this. Which hospital? I asked. I drove to County General in a daze. I found Linda in the waiting room looking 10 years older than she had at the wedding. Dad was there too, slumped in a chair, his face gray. They both looked up when I walked in. Linda's eyes widened. Mira, you came! Where is she? Fourth floor psychiatric evaluation. They won't let us see her yet. Linda's voice cracked. She's on suicide watch. I sat down, not near them, but not far away either. What happened? Dad rubbed face. We don't know. Everything seemed fine. The wedding was beautiful. She and Derek went on their honeymoon. They came back, started settling into married life. Then about 3 weeks ago, she just stopped. Stopped going out, stopped answering calls, stopped eating properly. Derek said she just stared at the walls for hours. Did something happen? Did Derek do something? No, Linda said firmly. Derek is wonderful. He's been trying everything. Therapy, medication, couples counseling, nothing worked. She just kept sinking deeper. I felt sick. This was my fault. I'd wanted to hurt Emma, to make her feel small and powerless the way she'd made me feel. And I'd succeeded. I'd succeeded so well that I'd broken her. A doctor appeared, a tired-looking woman in her 50s. Chen family? We all stood. The doctor glanced at me. Are you family? Stepsister, I said. Emma is asking for you. Just you. Linda made a sound of protest, but the doctor held up her hand. Emma has specifically requested to see only Mira. We have to respect the patient's wishes. You can see her afterward if she consents. I followed the doctor to a small, sterile room. Emma was sitting on the bed, wearing a hospital gown, her hair lank and greasy. She looked nothing like the glowing bride from 2 months ago. She looked hollow. Hi, I said, not knowing what else to say. Emma looked at me with dead eyes. You hate me. I don't hate you, Emma. You should. I took everything from you. Your room, your money, your family's attention. I was spoiled and selfish, and I never even thanked you. Not once. Not ever. Her voice was flat, emotionless. I didn't understand what I'd done until the wedding. Until I saw you at the gala on the news, looking so happy and successful. And I realized that everything I have, you should have had. Everything I am because you were crushed down to make room for me. Emma, I'm the villain in your story, aren't I? I'm the evil stepsister who stole Cinderella's life. Except there's no fairy godmother for me, no redemption arc. I'm just the bad guy. I pulled up a chair and sat down. You're not a villain, Emma. You're just a person. A person who was raised by parents who loved you so much they forgot to teach you empathy or consequences. That's not your fault. It's theirs. But I still benefited from it. I still let them give me everything while you got nothing. I saw what was happening and I didn't care. I didn't want to care because that would mean admitting I didn't deserve it. Emma's eyes finally showed something, tears. When the venue got canceled, I was so angry at you. I thought you were being cruel for no reason. But then I started looking back at everything, really looking, and I saw it all, how small they made you, how much you sacrificed, how little I appreciated any of it. So you tried to kill yourself? I couldn't keep the edge out of my voice. I tried to kill myself because I realized I'm not a good person. I'm not kind or generous or deserving of love. I'm the product of parents who valued me above everything, including basic human decency. And Derek, her voice broke, Derek is so good, Mira. He's kind and patient and he loves me so much. And I don't deserve him. I don't deserve anything good because I built my entire life on someone else's stolen foundation. I sat there looking at this broken girl and I felt a complicated tangle of emotions. Anger, yes. Satisfaction that she finally understood what she'd done. But also something I didn't expect. Pity. and maybe buried deep, a tiny seed of compassion. You're right, I said finally. You don't deserve Derek if you're going to use him as a punishment for yourself. And you're right that you benefited from an unfair system. But Emma, trying to kill yourself doesn't fix anything. It doesn't give me back what I lost. It doesn't teach you anything. It just creates more damage, more pain, more victims. Then what should I do? Emma asked, and she sounded so young, so lost. Live, I said. See, live and do better. Be better. Not for me. I don't need anything from you, but for yourself. Prove that you can be more than what your parents made you. Prove that you can have empathy, that you can grow, that you can acknowledge your privilege and use it to help others instead of just taking more. How? That's for you to figure out. Maybe therapy, real therapy, not just couples counseling. Maybe volunteering with people who have nothing, so you can see how lucky you've been. Maybe just making different choices every day. But Emma, you have to want to change. You have to want to be better. I can't make you do that. Your parents can't make you do that. Only you can. Emma was quiet for a long time. Then she said, I'm sorry. I know it doesn't fix anything. I know it's not enough. But I'm sorry. I stood up. I believe you. And for what it's worth, I hope you get better. Not because I forgive you. That's going to take a long time, if it happens at all. But because no one deserves to feel so hopeless they want to die. Not even you. I left her room and found Linda and Dad in the hallway. Linda grabbed my arm. What did she say? Is she okay? She's not okay. But I think she might be eventually. She needs serious therapy, though, and you two, I looked at them both. You need to let her grow up. Stop protecting her from consequences. Stop making excuses for her. If you really love her, you'll let her become a real person instead of the perfect princess you've been pretending she is. Dad flinched. Linda started to argue, then stopped. She just nodded, tears streaming down her face. I drove home and poured myself a drink, then I poured another. Then I sat on my balcony overlooking the city and tried to process what had just happened. I'd wanted revenge. I'd gotten it, but the cost had been higher than I'd anticipated. Emma's suicide attempt wasn't my fault, not directly, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd pushed her toward that edge with my calculated cruelty. Was I wrong to take the venue? No. She'd signed a contract and failed to honor it. That was business, and I had every right to use my own hotel for my own event. Was I wrong to refuse to help? Maybe, probably. I'd had the power to give her a break, to extend the deadline, to show mercy. And I'd chosen not to because I'd wanted her to hurt. And now she'd hurt so badly she'd tried to die. I thought about my previous life, about working myself to death for a family that never appreciated me. I thought about the crushing weight of being the invisible daughter, the one who was expected to sacrifice everything and ask for nothing. That was torture. That was a living death, and I'd been right to refuse to live that way again. But maybe, just maybe, there was a middle ground between being a doormat and being ruthless. Maybe I could have protected myself and my boundaries without destroying Emma in the process. Or maybe this was necessary. Maybe Emma needed to hit rock bottom before she could become someone worth being. Maybe Linda and Dad needed to see the consequences of their favoritism. Maybe I needed to prove to myself that I mattered, that I had value, that I wouldn't accept scraps anymore. I didn't have answers. I just had questions, and a slowly diminishing bottle of whiskey, and the city lights blinking below me like a million distant possibilities. 3 weeks later, Emma was released from the hospital. She entered an intensive therapy program. Derek was by her side every step, and I gained a grudging respect for him. He really did love her, even at her worst. Linda and Dad tried to reach out to me several times. I mostly ignored them. I wasn't ready to have that conversation. Maybe I'd never be ready. But I did do one thing. I added a new criterion to the Grandma Zhang Scholarship Fund, priority consideration for applicants who had siblings or step-siblings with significant advantages, young women who'd been overlooked in their own families, who'd been expected to be the strong ones, the independent ones, the ones who made sacrifices. Girls like I'd been. The scholarship would cover full tuition, room and board, and living expenses. It would give them what I'd had to fight for, a real chance. A future, freedom. That felt like a better revenge than anything else I'd done. Because every girl who got that scholarship was proof that I'd broken the cycle, proof that I'd taken my pain and turned it into something good, proof that I'd won. The months rolled on. My hotel thrived. My investments continued to pay off. I dated a few people, had a few relationships that didn't work out, and that was okay. I was learning how to be a person outside of my trauma, outside of my revenge, outside of my previous life's shadow. I saw Emma once by accident at a coffee shop 6 months after her hospitalization. She was with Derek, and they were talking quietly. Seriously, she looked better, healthier, her eyes clearer. When she saw me, she didn't run over. She just gave me a small nod, an acknowledgement. I nodded back. We weren't going to be sisters. We probably weren't going to be friends, but maybe, eventually, we could be two people who'd hurt each other and survived it. That was enough. A year after Emma's wedding, the one that wasn't at the Grand Belmont, I held the second annual gala for the scholarship fund. This time, we raised $1 million. This time, national media covered it, and this time I gave a speech. My grandmother believed that education was the key to freedom, I told the crowd of donors and supporters. She believed that every young woman deserved the chance to build her own future, regardless of her circumstances. She believed in me when no one else did. And this fund is my way of passing that belief forward, of giving other girls what she gave me, hope. The crowd applauded. Cameras flashed. I smiled and posed for photos, comfortable in my role, confident in my purpose. Later, as the event wound down, my assistant approached me with a concerned look. "Ms. Jang, there's someone here who wasn't on the guest list. She says she's family. Should I have security remove her?" My heart sank. "What's her name?" "Linda Chen." I considered having her removed. It would be easy, justified even. But something made me pause. "I'll see her. Bring her to my office." Linda was waiting when I arrived, looking older and smaller than I remembered. She stood when I entered, her hands twisting nervously. "Thank you for seeing me," she said. "You have 5 minutes." Linda took a breath. "I came to apologize, not to ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve that. But to acknowledge what we did to you, to admit that I was wrong about everything." I leaned against my desk, arms crossed. "Go on." I was so focused on giving Emma everything I never had that I became blind to what that cost you. I told myself you were stronger, that you could handle it, that you didn't need the same support. But the truth is, I just loved my daughter more than I loved you. And that was wrong. You were a child too. You deserved a parent who protected you, not one who sacrificed you for her biological daughter's comfort. "Yes," I said simply. "I did." Linda's eyes filled with tears. "Emma is doing better. She's in therapy, working through her issues. She's volunteering at a youth shelter, trying to give back. She's trying to be a better person. And she's made me see who I really was, who I am." She wiped her eyes. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even want you to. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. And I'm sorry." I looked at this woman who'd made my teenage years hell. This woman who'd convinced my father to treat me like a second-class citizen in my own home. This woman who'd taught Emma that she deserved everything and I deserved nothing. And I felt nothing. No rage, no satisfaction, no lingering pain, just a sort of tired indifference. "Okay," I said. Linda blinked. "Okay?" "Okay, you're sorry. I hear you. I don't forgive you, and I don't think we'll ever have a relationship. But I hear you. That's more than I deserve." "Yes," I agreed. "It is, but Linda, here's the thing. I don't carry you anymore. I don't carry Dad or Emma or any of that pain. I let it go. Not for you, for me. Because carrying it was killing me, just like it killed me in my previous life. So you can be sorry, you can work on being better, but that's for you to carry now, not me." Linda nodded slowly. "Your previous life?" I smiled slightly. "Never mind. Just know that I'm done. I'm free. And I hope someday you and Emma can find that same freedom. Linda left shortly after. I never saw her again. Time continued its relentless march. The scholarship fund grew. My hotel became one of the premier venues in the city. I expanded, bought 2 more properties, built a small hospitality empire. I dated, eventually found someone who challenged me and supported me in equal measure, a woman named Sarah who worked in tech and had her own startup success story. We moved in together after a year. We talked about marriage, about the future, about building something together that was just ours. On what would have been my 25th birthday, the age I'd never reached in my previous life, Sarah threw me a surprise party. She invited my friends, my business partners, my scholarship recipients. She'd rented out the Grand Belmont's ballroom, the same space where Emma's wedding should have been. As I stood in that beautiful room, surrounded by people who genuinely cared about me, who saw me for who I was and not what I could give them, I felt something unexpected. Gratitude. Not for the suffering, not for the betrayal or the pain or the abuse, but for the second chance. For the opportunity to live my life on my own terms, for the strength I'd found in myself, first in death and then in rebirth. I thought about 16-year-old me, waking up with memories of a future that hadn't happened yet. I thought about how scared she'd been, how determined. I thought about every choice I'd made to get to this moment. Some of those choices had been good, some had been questionable, some had hurt people who maybe didn't deserve all of that hurt, but all of them had led here. To freedom, to success, to a life that was truly mine. Sarah tapped her glass, calling for a toast. To Mira, she said, her eyes warm with love. The strongest, smartest, most resilient person I know. Thank you for letting us celebrate you today. Everyone raised their glasses. To Mira! I raised mine too, and as I drank, I thought about my grandmother, about her belief in me, her investment in my future, her gift that had made all of this possible. Thank you, Grandma, I whispered. I made it. I really made it. And in my heart, I felt her smile. That night, after the party ended and Sarah and I were alone in my apartment, she asked me something she'd been curious about for months. You never talk about your family, she said. Your dad, your stepmother, your stepsister. What happened there? I thought about how to answer. I could tell her everything about my previous life, my death, my rebirth. But that truth was too strange, too impossible. She'd never believe me. So instead, I told her a different truth. They took from me, I said. For years, they took and took. And I gave because I thought that's what family meant. But eventually, I learned that family isn't about blood or marriage certificates. It's about mutual respect, support, and love. And we didn't have that. So I left. I built my own life. And I've never regretted it. Sarah kissed my forehead. Good for you. You deserve all of this. Yeah, I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. I do. I fell asleep that night thinking about Emma's wedding, the one that had happened at a lesser venue. I wondered if she'd found happiness with Derek. I wondered if Linda and Dad had learned anything. I wondered if they ever thought about me, about what they'd lost when they chose to treat me as less than. But mostly, I just felt grateful that I'd escaped, that I'd found the courage to value myself when no one else would, that I'd fought for my own happiness and won. My family had spent my college fund on Emma's wedding expenses, on her education, on her life. They'd stolen my future to give her a better one. But in this life, in this timeline, I'd taken it back. I'd bought the venue she couldn't afford. I'd built the life she'd once taken from me. I'd turned their betrayal into my triumph. And in the end, that was the best revenge of all. Living well, living fully, living free. 6 months later, I received a letter. It was addressed to me at the Grand Belmont, forwarded by my assistant with a note. Not sure if you want to see this, but it seemed important. The return address was Emma Chen. I almost threw it away unopened. But curiosity won. Dear Mira, I don't expect you to read this. I don't expect you to respond, but my therapist suggested I write it anyway, as part of my healing process. So, here goes. I'm 2 years into therapy now, real therapy, where I'm facing the person I was and the harm I caused. It's been the hardest thing I've ever done. Harder than my suicide attempt. Harder than my recovery. Because it's one thing to survive, and another thing entirely to look honestly at why you wanted to die in the first place. I wanted to die because I'd built my entire identity on a lie. The lie that I deserved everything I had. The lie that I was special, chosen, better. The lie that your sacrifices were just the natural order of things. Confronting that lie meant confronting what I really was, a privileged, spoiled brat who'd never questioned where her privileges came from or who paid for them. That person, the old Emma, she's gone now. I killed her, just like you killed the old Mira. We're both new, people, I think, remade by trauma and choice. I'm working at the youth shelter full-time now. I quit my marketing job. Derek wasn't thrilled at first. The money is basically nothing, but he understands. I need to do this. I need to help kids who remind me of you. Kids who are overlooked, underestimated, forced to be smaller so others can be bigger. I can't fix what I did to you. I can't give you back those years. But I can try to make sure other kids don't experience what you did. It's not enough. It'll never be enough. But it's what I have to offer. I saw the news about your latest hotel acquisition. Congratulations. I mean that. You've built an incredible life, and you did it despite us, despite me. That takes strength I don't think I'll ever fully comprehend. I hope you're happy. I hope you've found peace. I hope someday the mention of my name doesn't make you angry or sad or anything at all. I hope I become just a footnote in your success story, a minor villain you defeated on your way to better things. Thank you for saving my life that day in the hospital. Thank you for telling me I could be better. I'm trying. I'll keep trying. Not for you. You don't owe me anything. But for myself and for the kids who need someone to fight for them the way no one fought for you. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Emma, I read the letter 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it in my desk drawer. I didn't respond. Maybe someday I would, maybe not. But I kept the letter because here's what I'd learned over the past 5 years. Revenge is satisfying. Justice is necessary. But healing is complicated. I'd gotten my revenge. I'd reclaimed my stolen future. I'd built an empire from the ashes of my old life, and I'd proven that I mattered, that I had value, that no one could make me small ever again. But Emma's letter reminded me that other people were healing too. Other people were growing, changing, becoming better versions of themselves. And their growth didn't diminish my victory. If anything, it completed it. I'd won by refusing to stay broken. Emma was winning by refusing to stay the person who'd broken me. Both things could be true. I pulled out my phone and texted Sarah, "Dinner tonight? I need to talk about something." She responded immediately. "Always. Everything okay?" "Yeah," I typed back. "Everything's okay. Better than okay. I'll explain tonight." Because it was true. Everything was okay. I had my hotels, my scholarship fund, my relationship, my friends, my life. I had everything I'd ever dreamed of and more. And somewhere across town, Emma was working in a youth shelter, trying to become someone worth being. Linda and Dad were presumably learning how to be better parents, better people. Derek was supporting his wife through her transformation. They were all writing their own stories of redemption and growth. And me, I was writing mine. A story about a girl who died and was reborn, who fought for her future and won, who turned betrayal into triumph and pain into power. A story about spending my college fund on revenge and discovering that the best revenge of all was spending it on myself instead. I looked around my office in the Grand Belmont Hotel, at the awards on the walls, the photos of scholarship recipients, the business magazines featuring my success story. I looked at the life I'd built from nothing, from ashes, from the determination to never be invisible again. And I smiled. I'd won, not just against Emma or Linda or Dad, but against the part of myself that had believed I deserved to be small, against the voice that said I should be grateful for scraps, against every person who'd ever underestimated me. I'd won, and the victory was sweet, but more than that, I was free, and in the end, that was all that mattered.